All right, I'm gonna start recording here because I know some people are going to be coming in a little late. Metro was running half an hour behind schedule this morning, so Danny will be at least half an hour late. Um, so good morning. Beginning of week 5, we have about 2 weeks of basics left. Like just like the building blocks before we actually get to building real stuff. So yeah, there's a lot to cover this week. A lot of stuff is going to happen. Now let's just kind of warm up our brains for today. I didn't get home till a little bit later last night after the Super Bowl. So let's warm up a little bit. Let's fill out those feedback forms. For the first like 5 minutes or so as I go through this particular calendar. So if you haven't done feedback forms, go ahead and get started. But the next couple weeks are again like the last 2 weeks of like real basics before we move on into like go pretty quickly and jump into frameworks in 2 weeks. A lot of things are happening in the next couple weeks, and as the bootcamp progresses, there's going to be more and more people, more and more events coming out. Just kind of look forward to for the next few weeks. Tomorrow, Chris Walquist is going to come in again to present on Git. So you all remember that really in-depth, mind-blowing Git thing that he did a few weeks back. He's going to come in and finish up this Tuesday. We're going to have a grad from Platoon teaching HTML and CSS on Wednesday. She is hands down like better than I am when it comes to HTML and CSS. Not because I'm like, she's better than I am. Period. She works with this every single day. She's very talented at it. This is her bread and butter. This is how she puts food on the table. So she's obviously better than I am at that. Assessment number 3 is going to be on Thursday morning, and it's only going to be about 90 minutes to 2 hours long. There's only one right answer, so it's easy because it's SQL. There's only one right answer. On Friday, Chris Walquist is coming in again, so you get double dose of Chris. He's going to bring in one of his colleagues named Renee, and they're going to cover HTTP, which we're also going to cover today. So I'll introduce it today, and then he'll finish up on Friday. Megan will be back next week, teach about jQuery all day. Again, she's better than I am when it comes to this type of stuff because she does it all day. And then next Thursday is kind of a treat. We have Brian Willard, who's one of our board members at Code Platoon. He's going to be teaching us how to do whiteboarding. So if you ever wanted to see what a Google level caliber whiteboarding question looks like, if you want to be with him on that day, you can. I need at least 2 people, but I have a sense that everyone's going to jump over just to more or less see what it's like. And then next weekend is going to be the Safe Agile Practitioner weekend. So it's going to be 8 to 5 all day on the 17th and the 18th. So sorry, it's just going to be a 6-day week. But that Monday, President's Day, we're not going to have class, just to kind of give you all a break before, so that you're not going 7 days straight, because I'm pretty sure everyone would be dead. And everyone needs a break right before the frameworks. So a lot of things to look forward to. Just make sure that you're keeping up and keeping track of everything that's happening on the calendar. Also, over the next couple weeks is kind of an interesting treat. So we've been moving very quickly thus far, and as we've been moving quickly, I'm sure some people are like, "Man, I just wish I had a little bit of time to go back and to relearn some things." And that's kind of what we've built into weeks 5 and 6. So during weeks 5 and 6, the way that it's going to work is we're going to teach every morning, just like usual, and like give some sort of lecture for the day. We're going to continue recording, and it's all going to be new stuff. Not all of the things are going to be absolutely crucial for your first job. Like you should know about HTTP. You should know about curl and netcat, which we're going to use in our challenges today. But it's not absolutely crucial for your first job. Things like algorithm scripting, object orientation, SQL, maybe maybe ORMs like the active record. Like you need to know that stuff in order to get your first job. HTML and CSS, which we'll cover this week, how to use JavaScript. That's stuff that's absolutely crucial. But there's things like HTTP. It's like it's nice to have, but it's not an absolute necessity. And when it's not an absolute necessity, you don't need to do the challenges. Again, for certain days, you just don't need to do the challenges. So if there's a day that says retracking plan, you can go ahead and feel free to Pay attention, try to grab as much as you can from the lectures, but you don't need to do the challenges if you feel like, oh, my time is better spent going back and doing algorithms from week 1, or going back and revisiting some SQL and some object orientation. So those particular things you can kind of jump in over here. On those days, on those particular days, retracking, we've kind of come up with more or less the list of what we think to be the most important algorithms that you want us to go through, that you would want to go through. So there's 2 days on algorithms, there's a couple of days on CSV parsing and object orientation, and SQL Active Record 1 to 2 days. And these are just like recommendations. If you feel like, man, I really need help on algorithms, and take 2 days. I'm pretty good with CSV parsing and object orientation. Maybe you skip that altogether. It's kind of like a pick and choose your own adventure. Now with that, you're going to, if you need like one-on-one time, you just let us know. So if you need like, hey John, can we step out for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, even an hour or something like that? Can you reteach this to me one-on-one, or even in a small group setting? That might be a little bit more, beneficial for you all. Same thing goes for Mike. If you just needed to you're just like, can we reserve a conference room and work through this for a couple hours? That's totally okay as well. Just let us know what you need, but we wanted to open up that particular bit of time for you. Now, I've done this bootcamp 4 times with your group, and I know right around weeks 5 and 6 is when the time for people, when a lot of people just start like dropping off the face of the earth. So you can only push so hard for so long before you start burning out a little bit. So that's why we kind of built in these 2 weeks in here. So what I will say is continue showing up every single day for class, even though it's like, oh, I don't really need to do these particular challenges or something like that. Continue showing up, continue working hard, because that's the only way that you're actually really going to learn this amount of stuff in such a short, truncated amount of time. So with that, we're going to spend until 9:30. Actually, are there any questions on the calendar or things to expect coming up? No? All right. All right. So we're going to take until 9:30, and we're going to update 2 things. So if you go last week, when I take a look at everybody's LinkedIn, let's jump over to somebody who may not have all of the things written out. I'm going to make fun of Danny because he's not here. But he's going to watch this later. All right. So last week we spent a week on like getting like a little bit of our LinkedIn up to date. So we've got a photograph, we've got our name, what our current title is. I might change this to something a little bit more conducive to trying to find a job. Your current workplace, which should be Code Platoon, where you went to school, where you're looking for a job, and this is the number of people that you know. In addition, we did the Tell Me About Yourself question. We wrote it out in full-length prose, and we kind of summarized it into 1 paragraph here. I haven't read through this yet. And then everything else I just said, just list everything else that you would ever need. Just your position, the company you work for, when you worked for them, and like where you were. Don't write any sort of descriptions. And then finish up your education as well. Now, this week we're going to be working on actually filling out some of these things. And the things I want you to keep track of are this particular, under each experience, you should have either bullet points or paragraphs, not both. So if you want to write it out in bullet points, that's totally okay. Then you have something really easy to just transfer it to your resume later on. If you want to write it in paragraph form, maybe just 1 paragraph for all of these, like the previous positions, and then maybe 2 paragraphs on the actual position that you're on right now. Now these paragraphs should be basically a summary of what you did. So the way I would break it down is the first sentence is basically what your job is. And then the next 2 to 3 sentences are measurable things that you've done. I mean, you can obviously copy and paste a job description and just put it underneath here, and then you can say like, oh, I wrote something. But what people are looking for on a resume and what people are looking for on LinkedIn is, yes, everyone can do a job, and there's a job description. You can make it sound all fancy and stuff. But people are mostly looking for measurable results. So like when I was in college, I was the finance director for the largest student run outdoor music festival. You know, I wrote checks to I handed a check to Nelly for 85,000. He played for 1 hour, so every second he was up there, he was making hundreds of dollars, which was kind of interesting. So I could like write all of that stuff out, like, you know, like I wasn't like I balanced the ledger or something like that. Like, but that's a job description, you know, like that's like what you actually had to do. But like, what did I measurably do that was different and went above and beyond? So like I can write about, you know, when I first started, you know, our operating budget was $180,000. Now that's to have a music festival for 10,000 people, and 85,000 of that goes to one artist. You know, how can we ever make anything work on 180,000? So through like clever like fundraising and, you know, mathematical whatevers, I raised the budget from 180 to $300,000. You probably didn't even pay attention to half the things I just said, but you paid attention to 180,000 was a start and $300,000 was what we ended up with. It's an increase of almost 100%, right? 60 or 70%. I'm not doing. I'm just kind of guessing at this point, but numbers stick out to people. If you were in charge of a team of people for whatever reason, I was in charge of a team of people. Nobody cares. I was in charge of a team of 10 people. Okay, like that. Like it makes more sense to like people want to just be able to glance and see this person has something that stands out about them. This person has measurable results. So, and every single job that you went to, you served a specific purpose and write like any sort of measurable achievements that you have. So if you jump over to mine, you can use this as a starting point. I should probably update this. This is a bad one because I should probably put more stuff in here. But as of right now, this is an example of a bad, this is not a good example. Let's go back down here. Okay, right here. So it's kind of like, as a software engineer, you write code. Like there's no sexy way to write it. Like you just write code. Like you can say, I did all this type of stuff, whatever. So I wrote what we used. And then I could say I was like, I'm the top contributor for 40% of the most widely used repositories and the top 3 for the other 60. So this, at least from the top 40 and the top 40%, I was the top one for 40% and top 3 for 60% of the other ones. It's like you at least know that this person can write code and it goes into production. I might add something in here. It's like I had 400 closed pull requests in the year and a half that I worked, the year and 9 months that I worked there. So it's like something measurable that will jump out of the screen. Like I taught classes for 4 to 12 students. This was kind of whatever. We brought down the need to. I built a tool, a Groupon that allowed us to cut down on 75% of the tickets that we got in. When I was teaching, I Teach for America. Like my student scores were 50% higher than the state average, right? So it's kind of like you want to humble brag quite a bit. So just humble brag quite a bit. This one I might change. I might say like, I've taught 4 classes of people with an average placement rate of 85%. That's around what my placement rate has been at with everybody here so far. So just anything measurable that you can do, just put it in there. Any question?
So what if you don't have, or you can't think of any measurable, like it's not, you didn't do anything impressive, like, so like I did an internship.
If you did nothing impressive, okay.
I did an internship for 3 months where I worked on 2 websites. I mean,
okay.
That was it. And I used maybe 3 programs to do it.
What was the amount of traffic that was there before, and then what was the traffic afterwards? Did you start with a greenfield project, meaning like brand new, or was it something that was already existing?
It was brand new, so I don't know how much traffic I have now. I guess I could check that.
Yeah, you can check that, like Google Analytics or whatever analytics they use to see, like, like after I built this, there are 1,000 people a month coming to this website. It's not bad. You can put something like that.
Or maybe if they only had 2 projects coming, you could say I worked on 100% of it.
I worked, yeah. Again, it's all about spinning it in a certain way.
Okay.
So today we're going to be spending some time on that. Just be writing paragraphs or be writing bullet points about like what you did, and then make sure you have lots of like percentages and numbers and things like that. On top of that, we're going to answer a new question this week. So last week we covered tell me about yourself, and I felt pretty comfortable with people, where people were. We're going to be doing a new question this week, which is tell me about a time you failed. Almost guaranteed to be asked on an interview. Tell me about a time that you failed at something, because they want to make sure that you're not a robot and that you can't say I never failed at anything, because then you're just a liar. So when you say tell me about a time you failed, you have to spin this. Again, last week I was talking with some people about their stories, and your things can be spun in every which way. Like Sharif was like, oh, I was a welder, and then I decided I was going to be an Arabic linguist, and then I'm going to jump. It seemed very jumpy. And I was like, well, all of those things are good. Let's just spin it. I'm a curious person. I always have to be learning new things. So I started off as a welder. I mastered that. I wasn't pleased with myself. So I knew that I knew Arabic pretty well. So I wanted to become an Arabic linguist for the Marine Corps. And then afterwards, I really liked numbers. So I moved to budgets, and I finally settled on web and software development, because it's always a challenge every day or something like that. Can you grab the door? So there's always a way to spin it. So don't say like the time that you failed and then everything is terrible afterwards. Tell them about a time that you failed and then you learned something as a result of it. Preferably everyone likes, all civilians like a good military story. I'm not gonna lie. So if you have anything from there that will stick out in their mind more than, oh, I had to work with a teammate, didn't go well. I learned how to work with people better after that. That's not a memorable story, right? But it's like if you tell people talk in stories. That's how there's a Hawaiian term for it that when I went to Hawaii, my wife's community just kind of said, like, they just say talk story. You want to get together, just talk story. It's like that's how people communicate, and that's how people remember you, is through the stories that you tell. If you've ever gone to if you watch any speeches online or a TED Talk or something like that, the most engaging portion is the portion where they're telling a story, not the part where they're talking about all their findings. So tell a story about a time that you failed. Go with the situation that happened, the task that was on hand, the action, and the result that occurred afterwards. That's called the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. So I'm going to give you until 9:45, 9:50. Yeah, probably 9:45 or 9:50. I'll kind of gauge where people are at to do those two things. The first one will be, again, your LinkedIn. Right now, if you take a look, if you jump over at Danny's one, and most other people's one, there's just a list of positions, which is perfectly fine. In this, I want you to write about, the things that you did, and more importantly, the things that you achieved. Any numbers that you can say will jump out on the page. And then tell me about a time that you failed. We're going to, again, spend 2 days in full-length prose, meaning we're just writing it out completely. Be writing it out completely and just saying, like, this was the story of everything. Then Wednesday, Thursday, we'll dumb it down to just bullet points, and then Friday, we're going to practice it. So we'll take until 9:45, 9:50, and we'll get started on HTTP.